Hi, I'm Andy Powell. Welcome to the Purpose Project. All topics are fair game. I hope you enjoy. Sheriff Rhodes,
How are you doing, Andy?
welcome. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great.
Good. All right. We got all kinds of stuff happening. We got growth. We got people talking about water shortages. We got increased speed limits in Prescott Valley, which is actually what I'll start off with. I have a listener question for you. I don't know that you have anything to do with it, but they recently did this study, the traffic study in Prescott Valley, and decided they're going to raise the speed limit in all these different areas. My listener, my friend, he was wondering why they would do that in residential areas, and specifically Prescott East Highway, I think it is. Do you know why?
No, I don't. Did they raise the speed limit on Prescott East Highway
That's their intention, is to raise it by 5 miles an hour.
from 25 to 30?
Yeah.
And with all those roundabouts on there, and this is another. I mean, in my opinion, that's an example of poor civil engineering. Prescott East Highway was, when I started working here in 1994, it was a dead end street. So it was not an artery. It's an artery now.
Yeah.
And it was never intended to be that way because you have all these houses right on the side of the road.
Yeah.
There's not even any sidewalks. There's not, there's nothing. And kids playing out there, people trying to get in and out of their driveways, and they've turned it into an artery into the backside of Granville.
Yeah.
And I think that's unfortunate.
It is, and I think they're going to connect it up with 89 up there. Is that right?
I'm not sure,
Okay.
Well, I've seen the master plan, and there's a lot of different roads on that thing, including Sundog Connector.
Yep.
And but there's a lot of opposition to some of these roads, and so I don't know what'll actually end up getting built or not.
Because that where Sundog Road is, right down there by the new jail, there's that one too. Are they thinking about connecting those two? Is that where that's
Well, that's
going?
been part of the master plan, the SIMPO master plan for, I want to say, 20 years or so, to build that connector. And what's the road right there where Home Depot is in Prescott Valley?
I think that's Sundog.
So it would go up onto Glassford Hill, and then sort of cut across over to where the new Justice Center is,
Yeah.
and come out in that roundabout right there.
Yeah. Okay. And is that tribal land or no?
It's a mix. It's primarily state land. There's some private, but I'm not sure all of it.
Okay. Yeah, I know the tribal land is kind of blotched on the map.
It is.
Little circles here and there. Well, let's get into your bio. Who are you? Where'd you come from?
Sure.
What do you do?
Yeah.
You're Sheriff David Rhodes, Sheriff of Yavapai County. And you, as I understand it, you've been working in law enforcement for almost 30 years here in Yavapai?
Well, this is my 30th year,
Okay.
believe it or not.
Right on.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that.
Congratulations on, I guess, sticking with it that whole time. I know law enforcement life is not easy from what I hear. People I know who are doing that, city or county.
Yes, it's true. Well, I was born actually in Bisbee, Arizona. I don't know if you know where that is.
I do. I've been there.
Have you?
Weird spot.
Yeah, I was born there, and we had one side of the family had a ranch, which backed up to the border there between Bisbee and Douglas, not far from Naco, which is a port of entry. And the other side of the family was in mining, and we lived there till I was about 6. With grandparents down there, and then we moved to Cornville.
Okay.
There on Oak Creek, and to another ranch that the other side of the family owned, which is primarily where I grew up.
Okay.
Over there, and it was interesting when we were talking so much about the border and illegal immigration, and it's such a topic for law enforcement and public safety these days. When I was growing up, the border was a barbed wire fence, and you didn't notice too much about it. Mm-hmm. People would come across, and you had a lot of illegal border crossers back then, nothing like now. But now we have a 30-foot wall. You go down to the property where I grew up, and it's a 30-foot wall. So very interesting. So grew up, moved over to Cornville, grew up over there on a ranch over there, and went to Mingus Union High School. And as I was growing up, my grandfather was the chief deputy of the Cochise County Sheriff's Office when I was just a little kid. And I really got to, and the chief deputy is the number 2 position at the sheriff's office, and it is described in the Arizona State Constitution, and it's an appointee of the sheriff.
Okay.
And I got to know a little bit about the sheriff's office and what he did down there, and growing up in the rural lifestyle, which I really enjoyed. When I came to Cornville, I got to know the sheriff's deputies over there very well. There's not a lot of them, but got to know them, and I was just always so impressed with the way that they were with the public and the way they treated people and the way they handled their duties and their authority.
Disciplined and professional.
They were disciplined, professional, but they understood people. Yeah, and they had empathy, and they were able to the office of sheriff and all the deputies of the sheriff, we are peace officers first, and that's what they strove to do. And really just left a lasting impression on me as a young man, and I wanted to be a sheriff's deputy. And the county seat is Prescott. So when I was 18, I moved to Prescott, went to Yavapai College for a couple of years, and we had a reserve academy back then, Yavapai College did. And I attended that reserve academy as a reserve with the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office. And then I was hired full-time in August of 1994.
So you've been with Yavapai County the whole time?
The whole time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the biggest thing you've seen change in that time in the sheriff's office or the sheriff's department?
So much.
Yeah.
Of course, we're talking about growth. You're talking about population, and things like that. And that has had its challenges. Mm-hmm. The size of the agency has changed. The way that we go about our business has changed. The technology that's used to do this job has changed exponentially. When I started, there were no cell phones. There were no pagers. We did not have the internet. The internet barely existed. Our records management system, or what we did our reports on, was an old DOS system, if you know anything about that, which was just data entry.
Yeah.
And we wrote our reports in that. And then you had a radio, in your car. And if that's the only way you had to communicate.
So there was no radio on your person at that time?
We had a radio on our person, but it didn't work. Because
you're too far away.
Well, you're in the rural parts of the county, and you just didn't have very good very good coverage with it.
Yeah.
So primarily, you were working by yourself, with nothing but radio communications, suspect radio communications with your dispatch center. And so it's changed a lot since then.
Yeah. Growing up, what kind of stuff did you do as a kid? Like, what kind of hobbies did you have?
Well, we, punching cows was something that we loved to do.
Like cow tipping? Is that the same thing?
No, that's not the same thing. I'd say cow punching. It's cowboying. You're working day work on the ranches. You would do branding. You would do roundup, fence repair. I was a 4-year FFA kid at Mingus Union High School. No, not cow tipping.
Right on.
Well, I don't think cow punching is basically cowboying. We did that a lot. Spent a lot of time in the outdoors. Lived on Oak Creek, so I was fishing all the time. Spent a lot of time hunting. I became a big game outfitter, which I did for about 30 years. I became a river guide, guiding Grand Canyon river trips. I've been in San Juan, been to Utah. I've done a bunch of different rivers in Alaska. Guiding those trips, fly-in, drop-offs, whatnot. So public lands, the outdoors, those type of things have always been very important to me. And just, and it made me, it really gave me some skills for this job that a lot of people don't have, if you haven't grown up that way or you don't have experience with that. We're, search and rescue as an example, I was always very good at. because I understand the geography of the land. I understand, how to get around at night, how to get around, different weather patterns, things like that.
Yeah,
And
where a person might go,
where a
if
person
they're in
might go if
certain
they're lost,
circumstances.
and
Yeah.
what people are thinking when they're out there, and those kind of things. So that was what I really enjoyed doing, and it was a great way to grow up. It really was. I did not. The big city was a far off foreign place. On the occasion that we went to Phoenix, you really didn't get into the city until you got at least to Bell Road, and then Metro Center, which is now going to be destroyed, was
Yeah.
the hangout place.
Yep.
When I was a kid.
Yeah, I remember it still was when I was a kid. We got a big age gap between us, but there was that was the place to be. That's where the movies were up until they had a shooting in the food court. There was somebody that did some mass shooting in, I don't know, 2002 or 3 or something like that. But so how do you feel growing up that way on the land, and then to see the kind of explosive growth that we have happening right now and probably in the previous couple of decades from your perspective?
Well, it's a good question. And first of all, I loved growing up that way. I'm very grateful to have had that experience. And I didn't know until later on in life that it would be so impactful on me to have grown up that way. Growth, I try to, have a measured response to that. Growth is inevitable. The more that we're growing, the more management needs to occur of that growth. Our natural resources are finite. They can be exhausted. Mm-hmm. The water can be exhausted. The land can be exhausted. The animals, the wildlife out there can be exhausted. We can't just allow people to do whatever they want, wherever they want. Infrastructure needs to be planned and smartly planned. But I don't believe in tons of crazy, tedious regulations and rules. I don't believe in enforcing those as the sheriff or the county. And I do believe that private property owners have a right under the Constitution to develop or use their land in a way that they want to, as long as it fits within the overall plan of society. It's a very delicate balance. But I disagree with government attempting to deny property owners any legitimate use of their land. I think that there's opportunities, however, for private property owners and government to work together to preserve some of the most important pieces, or historic, iconic pieces. You see a lot of that going on. Land swaps, where property owners want to develop something, and the community or whatnot does not want that developed, and they work something else out. I do believe that that's one of the negotiation strategies that we need to be using here.
So what would be an example of an illegitimate way for a landowner to use their land?
An illegitimate way?
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's a ton of ways. If you decided that you just wanted to drill 10 wells on it and make a giant water tank and sell water to everybody.
Okay.
I think that would be one way.
Okay.
I think, deciding that you want to create a mine, a gravel pit on your land or something that's not permitted or not whatnot, that has dramatic impact on your neighbors. Mm-hmm. I think that would be an illegitimate way. I think that if you have 2 acres of land and, in maybe Coyote Springs or whatnot, you should not, just putting up a long-range rifle shooting range is not something that's safe.
Yeah.
So there has to be some give and take there. And I think what we talk about a lot is the development for housing.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, I'm grateful. I moved here from Phoenix, so I'm kind of an outsider. But at the same time, it's frustrating to see the amount of development that's already been planned, like 10,000 homes by the airport or something crazy like that, another 3,500 out by Fane, northeast Prescott Valley.
There's a lot of planning going on, and there's a lot of politics behind it, for sure, and there's a lot of big money behind it.
Yeah.
And I would just say that once all of that land is gone and once this open space is gone, it's gone forever.
It's gone forever. And then And then the next set of open space is going to be the target.
Yep.
I mean, people aren't going to want to stop making money and justifying it by saying, "Oh, I'm giving people homes." Well, yeah, kind of, but you're also screwing up other people's homes. So
You are, and we don't control the push-pull factors of interstate migration. So
yeah,
people from California are wanting to come here primarily for better quality of life, lower taxes, right? Better
Yeah.
public safety that we've created.
supply and demand.
Supply and demand,
Yeah.
cheaper homes. It used
Yeah.
to be cheaper. I don't know if it is anymore. I think it still is in a lot of ways.
Mm.
And so that's a push factor from California is, your state income tax, all the crazy regulations, the horrible public safety, all of these things. That's a push factor. So this is a pull factor here in Arizona, as you've got beautiful wide open spaces, you've got great public safety, you've got low taxes, you've got good politics, in my opinion, trying to keep it that way. And that's why they come to locate here, like a lot of places, like Idaho, like places in Montana and whatnot.
So, as far as the development goes, what entity in the county is the single most powerful entity in slowing or accelerating this type of development?
Most likely it's the developers.
So, private individuals
Well,
or
if
companies?
they don't propose, and I want to clarify something here. We're talking about a lot of things that really don't have anything to do with being the sheriff.
Right.
But I feel like planning for public safety in the county is one of the things that the sheriff needs to do, and we are doing that. We
Yeah.
are scaling up public safety dramatically to stay out in front of what it is that we know is coming or what it is that we know is possible. In other words, if you were to wait until everybody moves here and all the crime starts to occur, and then you'll never catch up.
Yeah.
You can't budget enough, you can't hire enough, you can't buy enough things. And so we're growing incrementally to match that each year. And we've got a number of strategies in place to do that. But I think that the city councils, they do what they can. The county board of supervisors is doing what they can to manage this, but they're boxed in a lot of ways. Proposals that are made, eventually, some version of it is likely to get approved. And so it's the developers that are putting the proposals together. And so the pressure needs to be on them really to be good partners of the community and the county. And this one example, you saw a rock mine that was going to be built out in Chino Valley.
Yeah, I did.
And that was something that I called the Attorney General. We had a conversation about it. She looked into it and she filed a nuisance complaint, an injunction for a nuisance. Basically, it was going to cause all these problems right in the middle of a residential neighborhood. That situation got resolved because somebody bought that property and agreed not to turn it into an aggregate mine.
Okay, I didn't hear that. That's good.
It is. But those things are being stood up all over the place.
Oh.
And I don't even know because I just see the stop the mining signs that are everywhere.
So if you know that they're going to build 10,000 homes by the airport and 3,500 out there, is there some equation that you calculate like, oh, we'll need this many more people by this date or something?
Yeah, there is a minimum staffing level that you calculate. Now, if you're in a rural area, that minimum staffing level is a lot lower. And if you're in an urban area, in a municipality, that minimum staffing level can be a little bit higher. But it's usually around 2 to 2.2 certified police officers per 1,000 residents is what you're aiming for. And so...
That seems low.
Well, it is in certain areas because it depends on the demographics and the calls for service. Crime that's occurring and the response times. It's really driven by response times.
Okay. Right on. Are you a father?
I am.
Okay. How many kids you got?
I have one son.
One son. I have one son as well. So what is your role as the sheriff?
Oh, it's many. It's many. The sheriff, of course, there's what's written in the state constitution. and that's chief law enforcement officer of the county. And that's a big role in itself. While you're responsible for first response or all of the law enforcement that occurs in the unincorporated areas of the county, you're also responsible for coordinating law enforcement mission in other areas of the county, even in some of the cities. And you will see, some of the cities that are smaller and don't have resources or whatnot, we share a lot of resources to make sure that the residents in those cities are taken care of. Everybody in the cities votes for the sheriff, votes for position of sheriff.
Right.
For this reason. We are also responsible for keeping and maintaining the county jail. Now, the county jail is guaranteed under the state constitution, and that is the place where all law enforcement goes to book people who've been arrested. Now, these are your what we call pretrial detainees. They're innocent until proven guilty. And our population at our jail is about 80% pretrial detainees. About 20% are people who've been sentenced for committing a crime. They've been convicted and sentenced to less than 1 year of incarceration.
Yeah, right.
If they're sentenced to more than 1 year, then they go to the Arizona Department of Corrections.
State prison.
State prison. The sheriff is responsible for the civil process service in the county. The sheriff, a big one here in Yavapai County in particular, is the sheriff's responsible for coordinating search and rescue. And we do that using a vast volunteer network. Sheriff's Office has probably about 500 volunteers now. A vast majority of those, a large number of those, are search and rescue volunteers.
Yeah.
We also have a large auxiliary force of armed volunteers that are out on patrol that we can use to deal with other things as they come up.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that like the sheriff's posse? Is that
Yeah,
the same
you could
thing?
you could I mean it would be similar, yeah. It's our sheriff's auxiliary force. It used to be volunteers in protection, but these are men and women who wanted to they wear a brown uniform, they're armed, they're in marked cars, they're out there. We use them for all kinds of different things. We use them as a surge in resources when we need them for whatever kind of event you might have.
Okay, so these are visible uniformed volunteers.
Yes.
Okay, not what I was thinking.
Yes.
Right on.
Yes.
Okay. Now you're talking about roles of the sheriff individually, or the roles of the sheriff's office, or kind of both.
So those that's important part of it. And so creating the mission and policy and vision for public safety in the county is a major role of the sheriff. And we do that through our deputies and through our staff. We have tremendous staff at the sheriff's office, a lot of really hardworking, career-oriented, dedicated public servants that come to work every day and do everything that they can to answer the 911 calls, go for the calls for service, serve meals inside the jail, pastors, release coordinators, whatever it is. These people come to work every day, and I create the mission and vision for them. The sheriff does. But there's other parts that only the sheriff can do. I get that work done through employees and volunteers.
Right.
But the part that only the sheriff can do really is the political part.
Yeah.
And so that is the thing like defending Second Amendment rights for the citizens of the county.
Yeah.
Which I do every single day. We work to defeat. There's constantly legislation and different things that are going on that are aimed at infringing on Second Amendment rights.
Yeah.
I'm president of the Arizona Sheriff's Association.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Now, is that you, David Rhodes, that is the president, or is it your position as the Yavapai Sheriff's, the Yavapai Sheriff that holds that presidency?
No, the presidency rotates every 2 years, and I was elected by the sheriffs of the state to be the president of the association.
Okay, so then whenever that 2 years is up, all the sheriffs in Arizona will vote for the next guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes. So defending Second Amendment rights, setting those type of policies. I'll give you an example. A refusal to enforce executive orders. The position of constitutional sheriff comes up a lot. And what does that mean? It means exactly that. We don't enforce the executive orders. An executive order, it doesn't matter what it pertains to or who issues it, in my opinion, is unconstitutional. And you hear a lot, there's a lot of concerns about executive orders related to gun laws. They believe there's concerns that there could be an order by a Democrat governor or a Democrat president to go and seize guns from people. They need law enforcement to actually do that. That's not going to happen, ever, period, as long as I'm the sheriff.
Unless they use those new IRS agents that are armed, right?
Well, you got to love that, 87,000 IRS agents. I guess somebody's got to go and, beat the taxes out of people to pay for the $34 trillion in debt.
Right.
But that's a whole other issue because we've been complaining. This is another role of the sheriff. We've been complaining like crazy to the Congress about that and the fact that they can't even hire any new Border Patrol agents to get the border secured.
That's crazy. There's no way. There's so much money being allocated toward the border in these task forces, right?
Well, no, not enough. Not enough. And when we were negotiating, Arizona's ground zero really for the border situation.
Yeah.
And because we've got half of the nation's fentanyl that's being seized right here in Arizona. It's because the border is wide open. So the Arizona sheriffs are playing probably a larger role than we ever would be in a federal policy issue, in a foreign policy issue, on insisting that the border get secured and border security get funded. You saw an acknowledgement basically by both sides, the Republicans and the Democrats, when the Border Patrol bill came out, that $18 billion was needed to get the border under control. But because it fell apart, and the bill was not good, but because it fell apart, $0 have been allocated above and beyond what's in the normal budget to get the border secured.
That's separate from the wall, the materials for the wall.
That would have been part of
been
the wall.
paid for,
The
right?
wall, well, yes, the wall would have been part of that.
The materials are paid for, but perhaps not the labor to install the wall.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Like they're not going to do it. They're trying to extract money for the Ukraine before they agreed to do this. And the irony is Ukraine is going to see their money before we get our money to protect our people.
Right. Yeah, that's unfortunate. So what would you say is the ratio of political engagement versus law enforcement versus managing your staff? Like, what do you do the most of?
In normal years, you do it's probably 50-50.
Okay.
It's probably 50-50. We work with the Board of Supervisors a lot. We work with the state legislators a lot. When the legislature's not in session, there's less time spent on that issue. But that's what, as I was getting back to, that's one of the things that only the sheriff can do. I can't send employees to go negotiate policy with other elected officials, public safety policy.
You got to be the one.
I've got to be the one to do it.
Okay.
And it's very important to have those relationships, have those open lines of communication, so that you can get the things that you need. We've been very successful here in Yavapai at getting laws passed. I believe that we've persuaded the governor to sign a mandatory minimum sentencing bill for fentanyl dealers. It's going to be in the Senate this week. We've been working very hard on that. We have gotten allocations of money for all the sheriffs in the entire state for things that are law enforcement related to the situation at the border, the jails, buying equipment. We have gotten.
So is this state funds?
These are state funds
that are being given to each county?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the county, is it being given to the county or the sheriff's department?
The sheriff.
Okay. So then the sheriff's department decides what happens with that money, where it goes and all that?
Yeah, but you have to tell them what you're going to do with it before it gets appropriated.
Interesting. So then they can decide whether or not they're going to give it to you?
Well, it's all a game.
Yeah.
Once they know you want something, then they try, somebody's always trying to use that as leverage to get you to do something.
Yeah.
They want this, they want that. And public safety really shouldn't be a political shell game, but it is in a lot of ways. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. We just need to talk about the facts, and we need to talk about what's needed. and how to keep the communities safe.
Yeah.
And public safety policy really is transcendent among the entire state.
You think that that's beneficial, that it's like that, or do you think it'd be better off if it was more locally oriented?
Well, as long as they're enforcing the laws and they're enacting, they're protecting people's constitutional rights, then I think it's beneficial that we're all on the same page. But what happens is you start to run into areas that want to defund the police, or they don't want to enforce the laws, or they want to allow, encourage even people who are in the country illegal to come and live there. And I think that's unfortunate.
It is. Do we have anything like that in Yavapai that you're aware of?
No.
Cool.
No, we don't. I would be the first one to say if we had any government entity that was trying to function in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the Yavapai County Sheriff's Department doing the best right now?
What are we doing the best at?
What is it best at right now?
Well, we're doing very well at a lot of things. Recruitment and retention. Our recruitment and our retention is doing better than it's done in a lot of years. We really suffered like the rest of the agencies in law enforcement during the COVID years. And the combination of COVID and the defund the police movement and the media just did a number on law enforcement across this nation. And it made it so young people didn't want to get involved. And we've spent a lot of time raising compensation, getting benefits in place, but convincing people that this is a good, honorable, noble profession, and their communities need them. Their country needs them. Without law enforcement, without public safety, we've got nothing. We're no different than Mexico. And people ask me this all the time. What is what are we doing well at, or what's the difference between us and Mexico? Why is it so bad down there? Why can't you get the border under control? There's some very basic premises of law enforcement, I think, that I talk about all the time. And that's this. If people believe that the laws are going to be enforced, they're more likely to follow them. And if they believe that there's a consequence for breaking the law, they're more likely to not break the law. Right now, down on the border, as an example, people do not believe that our laws are going to be enforced.
Because they're not.
And they don't believe that if there is a consequence, they're not afraid of it.
Yeah.
Because they're not.
Because it's next to nothing. It's not real consequential at all.
Exactly. Same thing applies to the cartels and the organizations that are controlling the southern side of the border. They feel at liberty to murder people, rape women, kill police officers, and basically run that country down there because they're not afraid of law enforcement on that southern side of the border. But you don't see yet, hopefully we never do, those things happening on the north side of the border because here, American law enforcement, Arizona's law enforcement, still reigns king. People are afraid of being chased down by the American police and being put in an American prison for the rest of their life, and they believe that it could happen.
And it can, because what we have here as far as law enforcement or even the populace is good people.
Exactly.
And I heard this, I don't know who said it, but they said, what makes America great is that the people are good. And if the people are no longer good, then America will no longer be great.
That's absolutely correct.
Because the difference is law enforcement here is not a cartel. Law enforcement down there is either run by or is the cartels. So that's the major difference that I see.
Well, you're right. Randy, you're right on. I mean, that is the exact difference that you're seeing. That's the exact, it's a basic understanding, social, philosophical understanding, and it can be applied to everything in law enforcement. We're talking about a major topic, border security, that's incredibly complicated, but when you simplify it to that, just enforcement of the laws and respect for the rule of law, it becomes very simple. Yeah. Speeding on these roads. If people see the police out there and the sheriff's deputies, police, they're worried about getting pulled over, they're worried about getting a ticket, they're less likely to speed.
Yep.
and it's a philosophy that we use for everything here in Yavapai County to keep us safe. The laws will be enforced.
Well, the laws are really, really boundaries. So if you look at it in terms of a cup with water in it, if the cup is not there, the walls of the cup, the water is going to spill everywhere. So people's actions or the crime or people's willingness to act selfishly, good people don't rape women. That's the thing. So if you don't have those boundaries in place, then there's no way that you're going to retain goodness in the community. So,
well, and the deterrent effect is real. When people do break the law, everybody else needs to know that laws were broken and that there was a consequence for it.
Yeah. Yeah, the consequences are huge. Back when they would hang people or,
the sheriff used to do that.
Or cut your hand off if you still steal something. We started doing that. People would steal a lot less.
That's true.
That's
true.
So, you mentioned the best thing that you guys are doing is recruitment and retention. I was driving down the 69 the other day, and I saw a billboard that said a $5,000 sign-on bonus. Is that a guaranteed sign-on bonus for people that are trying to become deputies, or is that a maybe you'll get a sign-on bonus?
No, that's a guaranteed sign-on bonus. And this is another example, some of the work that we do through the Arizona Sheriff's Association. As president, I lobbied for those bonuses were being paid by the Arizona State Legislature, not by the taxpayers of Yavapai County. So we lobbied for a $54 million appropriation from the Arizona Legislature that went to just the sheriffs in the state. That was retention bonuses for sheriff's deputies and detention officers that already worked there. Now, that was $10,000 for them to, as basically, you're doing a good job. We need you here. We want to show our appreciation. $5,000 is the hiring bonus.
Yeah.
You get the hiring bonus. You get it in quarterly increments paid out over 1 year. Mm-hmm. We don't want somebody to sign on, get $5,000. A week later, they're out the door.
Yeah.
So you get $1,250 quarterly for 1 year.
So if recruitment and retention is good, why offer a bonus?
Well, recruitment and retention is good because that's one of the strategies that we've had was to offer a bonus.
Okay.
And you're trying to get people to come live here, move here, relocate here, or people that don't have anywhere to live, or they're trying to get out of their parents' house or whatnot. And this is extra money for them to, put as a down payment on an apartment or their security deposit on an apartment, different things like that. That's why.
Right on. Now, how many guys or women are you hiring versus are losing in a given amount of time?
Well, we're going to do a presentation at the Board of Supervisors on March 20th, and we'll talk about this. But our vacancy rate has dropped dramatically since the summer, and you'll see that. We had about 120 vacancies in July, I believe that it was, and we're down around 50. It might even be closer to 40. So we've caught up a lot.
Does that mean you've hired 70-ish people?
We might have hired more than that because I'm going to present those numbers on the 20th.
Yeah.
We're working on that because we have had some retirements and normal attrition and whatnot, but we made a huge leap forward.
Now, the reason I ask is because the word around the county is that the attrition rate is higher right now, and a lot of guys are quitting for whatever reasons, like being out in the middle of nowhere by themselves and not being able to have backup fast enough. Now, is that happening?
We don't have people quitting at the rate that we're hiring people. Like I said, the staffing levels are very good. I'm going to reserve comment on that other than to say those falsifications are being told by self-serving individuals who I think it's unfortunate that they would try to diminish the morale of the agency for their own reasons.
I don't fully understand what you mean, but are you reserving comment on the people being out in the middle of nowhere?
This is a rural
job. Yeah.
And so the backup that we have out in these rural areas comes from other areas. Mm-hmm. So you may be backed up by a DPS officer, you may be backed up by a Coconino County Sheriff's deputy, or you may be backed up by another sheriff's deputy if you need backup at all. A lot of the sheriff's deputies handle a lot of the calls by themselves, and that's understood when you're going into it. If that's a kind of a way that people are uncomfortable working, or they want to work in law enforcement, the urban environment is better for them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the people that have been here a long time or understand what some of these limitations are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I've heard that over the years with county.
Yeah.
You're working by yourself, far out, backup's far away. That's the way it goes. Now, what you mentioned before about self-serving, whatever, is this maybe one or multiple people talking about this stuff?
Like I said, I just think that, you when people are speaking a specific narrative in an effort to get people to feel less happy about their own public service, so that I disagree with doing that.
Yeah.
In other words,
I ask because I've heard it from multiple places, and so I'm wondering if it's one person that's sending out a narrative, or if this is multiple people that feel this way.
Well, I think we would have to ask all those people. I feel like we've added staff, we're adding deputies. Another $1 million that we got from the Arizona legislature. We're going to be adding 6 more deputies again this year to combat those things. Filling the positions is one of the ways that you deal with staffing issues.
Okay.
Which is to not have so many vacancies. And one of the ways to not have so many vacancies is to compensate people at market levels.
Yeah.
And to make sure that there's going to be pay raises and that there's equipment and mission and vision and these kind of things.
And you guys did just raise the base pay, right?
Yeah.
For a deputy?
We did, yeah.
By like $10,000 a year or something?
There are people that have been have gotten 75% pay increase in the last 3 years that work there. Yeah,
that's pretty significant.
They've the county did a compensation study. They raised base pay there. Then they gave considerable increases for merit. They gave considerable increases for the cost of living adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
And so since 2020, we've come a long ways. And we needed to. People were being underpaid, and that was one of the major issues. And we needed to address that. And so, but money doesn't solve all the issues.
Yeah.
For sure.
No. Are those deputies that are getting those types of increases, the 75%?
Yeah. Deputies, awesome. Yeah. It's not the sheriff, I can tell you that.
No.
Our salary's set by statute, and you don't get any pay increases.
I'm trying to get a good, clear picture because I know there's somewhere around 100, a little more than 100 deputies on staff, right?
Well, about 100 certified positions.
Yeah, actual out there on patrol at any given time during the week.
Yeah, about 140.
140?
Yeah.
Oh, that's much higher than I was told. Okay. So then in comparison to the number 140, how many other people are there in the sheriff's office that run the whole show?
Well, it has about 490 positions. There's about 50 of those are vacant, so there's about 440 employees there working right now.
Other than deputies?
No, including the deputies.
Okay, right.
Yeah, on. And so you have about 200 of those are uniformed detention officers.
Yeah,
and the jail is the bigger part of the agency. The staff in the jail is the bigger part of the agency.
Okay,
and so about 200 there. And it's about 92% of the positions there are what we call direct service, or they're calls for service, answering 911 calls, working the jail, or whatnot. And about 8% is administrative support.
Okay, right on. Let's see what else we got here. The last thing I have about attrition is something about internal affairs being used maliciously against employees. Is that a thing?
You're going to have to give me an example.
The one example that I have is somebody being late and being, I don't know, investigated by internal affairs. That's all I have. So if you need more specifics, I don't have that for you. But that's the gist that I get, is that internal affairs is attacking somebody for being late.
That's a bizarre question, Andy. I'm going to not, you have
Okay.
440 employees.
Yeah.
And if somebody was written up or something for being late, I don't know.
Okay. I don't know how that stuff works, so just
Yeah.
trying to pose all the questions I can that.
Yeah. No, I understand.
That I get.
I understand. If there's, I'm glad to answer any questions that have any details or facts behind them. I'm glad to do that, but I'm not sure what you're referring to.
I don't want you to play a guessing game. That's not what I'm after. I don't have specifics on that, so we'll skip that. Retention and recruitment is doing the best. Where is the agency failing the most?
There's always, I think that to say that they're failing anywhere is an indictment on the work that the people that are there are doing.
Yeah.
And you can always do better.
Can I ask the question differently?
Sure.
Where does the sheriff's department need the most improvement or the most attention?
Yeah. I think that we need the most attention in policy updates. I think we need the most attention in the ability to respond to speeding complaints, things like this. What you have is you have this push-pull, okay? You have the community who have expectations.
Yep.
And they want to see visibility and they want to see proactive law enforcement. And we're doing that to the best of our ability and what we can do. But then there's calls for service. There's extraordinary drive times to get to those calls for service. There are, things that just have to be done, ministerial duties and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so I think we could do a better job of maybe reducing the burden on some of the deputies. And this is what I say, the policy changes, or, continually looking for what is the work that we're doing? Does that add value? Is that needed? And if not, we needed to get it off their plate.
Yeah.
So that they can focus on the things that we need to actually have them doing.
Okay. Okay, cool. So I wanted to ask, what in your opinion is the biggest external threat to Yavapai County, to the safety of the people that live in Yavapai County?
The biggest external threat is that somehow, all these people that are coming across the border that are not coming here now decide to start coming here and living out in the woods and setting up, and organized crime and gangs and all these things take over.
Do you think about that a lot, that type of
all the time
scenario? What would you do if or when that starts to happen?
We're going to do everything that we can to prevent it. And as I said when we were talking earlier, you're continually growing your law enforcement presence. You're creating a culture within the county and a policy belief system that the laws are going to be enforced here. One of the things that we're doing, everybody knows that this is a 287G county and that we deport people that are arrested and end up in our jail.
We do?
Yes.
How?
Through an agreement with ICE. It's 287G is the United States Code for the arrangement that allows for ICE to delegate DHS to delegate limited authority to law enforcement agencies for immigration enforcement. One of those is to when people are arrested in the county, they come to the jail, we have access to the ICE database. We screen people who have been booked for their immigration status. If they're in the country illegally, we can initiate our own detainers on them here at the Yavapai County Jail. Mm-hmm. And so we do that, and we communicate that to everybody, to the public, that if you are arrested in Yavapai County, you are going to be screened for your immigration status. If you're here illegally, a detainer will be placed, and you'll be turned over to ICE. So this is another prevention effort.
So my question would be, when you hand someone over to ICE, what guarantee do you have that they actually deport that person?
You don't have any guarantee.
Okay. So at the very least, they're being taken out of Yavapai County.
Well, in most circumstances, but this is why the elections have consequences, right?
Yeah.
Because the federal administration sets those policies.
Is there any kind of a looming threat that that agreement with ICE could disappear with Yavapai County?
Well, it survived Barack Obama, and
Okay.
it's survived Joe Biden so far. So I'm not terribly worried about it disappearing.
So that's an agreement you said between Yavapai County and who?
Department of Homeland Security.
Really?
Yes.
Do other counties in Arizona have that agreement?
A couple do. It was only us there for the longest time. It was stripped down tremendously. And then I'm not sure who's recently been listed as a 287G cooperator. I believe Powell, and I believe the city of Mesa has it for their jail.
Really?
Yeah.
The city of Mesa.
Yeah.
Good old city of Mesa.
Yeah.
I know about them. Okay. Let's see. What is your definition of justice?
My definition of justice?
What is justice?
Well, justice is the laws that are created by society, typically, and I believe in natural law. When you start getting out of natural law and you start talking about all of these other things, they become very subjective. And you start to see how the laws have waxed and waned over the years. Natural law is the basis of it. People who violate natural law, particularly violating the rights of other people, victimizing other people, need to be held to account. They need to be held to account in a constitutional way, under due process of law, set out in the U.S. Constitution. And they need to pay the penalty for that. And the others in the community need to know what crime, what harm was done, and what the punishment was. And that is the deterrent effect, and the belief that justice is equal.
Awesome. I think I know the answer to my next question. I think I know what you would say based on what we talked about earlier. Do you believe that all sitting laws are just?
All sitting laws?
All current laws that exist?
No.
Okay, I don't think so.
No, I don't.
No. Let's see what else we got here. What constitutes a domestic enemy, in your opinion?
Well, a domestic enemy are those that are actively trying to subvert the will of the people and the constitutional laws. I think that domestic enemy gets thrown around against people who are opposed to the government or who are opposed to actions of the government.
Yeah.
And I disagree with that. But I believe that if you are attempting to subvert the U.S. Constitution, the rights of other people, you are, in fact, a domestic enemy. And I would give you an example. One of the, when I said we're peace officers, you take the oath of office, and the role of the sheriff that I take very seriously is to defend the people from federal government overreach or from government overreach. That's a very serious charge. And many times you will see the government is saying, hey, because these people are opposed to something that we're doing or some outcome of whatever, or they've got strong opinions or strong voices, they want to take the full weight of the law and weaponize it against individuals. And protecting those First Amendment rights is something that I take very seriously.
Yeah, and the federal government will, along those same lines, declare that this particular group or that group is a domestic enemy or a potential domestic terrorist threat.
And that began all the way back, Hoover started doing that all the way back in the day when he was labeling people communists and whatnot, and then he would be able to use that to wiretap them and to get all these recordings and do all these things. And some of them were communists, to be honest.
Yeah.
And some of them were trying to take down the country because that's what they wanted to do. But many other people weren't. And I think you got to have a sharp eye and a sharp focus as the sheriff of the county to recognize when that's happening. And there are many people in this county and everywhere who are far too willing to turn over their constitutional rights and just trust in the government that the government always knows best.
Yeah. Do you see anybody in this county who is a domestic enemy against the people?
No, I'll reserve that. We'll talk about that another time.
Can you say yes or no? Sounds like a yes, but you won't say who. But
this is information we work on all the time. So
cool.
There are people that would like to see Second Amendment rights completely stripped.
Yeah. Okay. How do you feel about the no victim, no crime mindset?
The no victim, no crime, like drug use?
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah. Well, look, it's persuasive to a certain extent, but it's almost like the growth issue. When it starts to impact others and society as a whole and the community as a whole, then that they're the ones that become the victims, right? And you can't have no victim, no crime when it's having such a tremendous impact on society. So again, it's a kind of case-by-case situation.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, and that's where the need for the boundaries comes in.
It is.
Okay. I asked you what the biggest external threat facing Yavapai County is. What is the biggest internal threat to people's way of life and public safety here in this county?
Apathy. Apathy. I think that you need to understand that many people have leaders, police officers, different people have worked for a very long time to make Yavapai County as great as it is. And sometimes we take it for granted. And we spend a lot of time fighting with each other, and we spend a lot of time fighting over other things. And slowly, that can kind of creep away from us, what we have. And we have to fight to protect it. Because like the open space, when this is, when it's gone, when your constitutional freedoms are gone, or maybe it's your second, whatever it is, when they're gone for good.
Yeah. Good luck getting them back. Yeah. So apathy would be like the opposite of empathy?
Apathy is just not caring, not paying attention, believing everything will be okay, sort of head in the sand.
Kind of like complacency?
Yes, complacency. Okay. Complacency is a little like that, but apathy is more of an action. Complacency is do nothing. Apathy is like recognizing that you need to be paying attention to something and sort of shrugging your shoulders.
Willful ignorance.
Yeah, willful ignorance. Yeah.
Okay, that's a great answer. As a person who is, I guess, the leader of this large organization, do you have people you go to for advisement or guidance in leadership or in certain circumstances or situations, politically or anything?
No, we have a lot of people. We draw on a lot of people. A lot of people have expertise in a lot of different ways, and I just have a lot of relationships. I know a lot of people. There's a lot of people that I respect, that I know that they understand the law. They have the ability of discernment, and so yeah.
Yeah, good. All right, money. We got the county board of supervisors. They're the ones that decide what money goes where, right?
Yes.
How many people are on that board?
5.
So, are those elected positions?
They are.
Okay. Do you have, so what is your relationship to the board in as far as managing money or saying, hey, we need this stuff? How does that all work?
Well, on a very high level, the sheriff is responsible for the operations, the jail, law enforcement, and whatnot. And I come to them with a proposed budget, like all the elected officials. And we negotiate over what that budget's going to be and for what reason, why we need it. Once they once they give me the budget, or any of the elected officials, once they authorize the budget, they approve of it, then we go and spend the budget within the parameters that they've set up. And that gives the sheriff some flexibility and latitude over certain things like operational costs. Maybe it's equipment, maybe it's certain things, but a lot of that is set. The lion's share of the budget is salaries and benefits. I want to say it's about 83% of the budget. And that's set by the Board of Supervisors through a negotiation with me. But, once it's set, it's set.
Okay. And now there's different specialties in Yavapai County, like SWAT. Those guys get paid more or anything like that?
They do. They get a stipend.
Okay. Otherwise, if you have the same basic job as everyone else, everybody pretty much gets paid equally except for time in service?
Well, no. There's so much to this.
Oh.
You get, depending on what rank you hold, there's specialty positions, there's on-call pay, it depends on what they are, there's overtime, there's how long you've been here, there's if you, what your evaluations have been.
Okay, yeah.
There's a lot to it.
Okay,
yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right on. So, pretrial diversion, what is that?
Well, pretrial diversion is simply it's a law created in statute that allows the county attorney to offer diversion. In other words, if you are arrested for something and it's low-level victimless crime, or to use your words, drug use or something, we can offer treatment to this person. If they stay engaged in it, then the charges can be reduced or dismissed, and you avoid the court process. That's why they call it diversion, because you're diverting away from the court process.
Okay, so they go to rehab instead of going to jail?
Yes, in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, for the basic citizen who doesn't.
Most people don't go to rehab.
What do they do?
They go to treatment, but it's outpatient.
Oh, that's different than rehab. Treatment is different than rehab?
Well, rehab is generally thought of as inpatient. When you say you go to rehab,
you're stay
going
there.
to inpatient. Yeah. Outpatient treatment is a little bit different than rehab, but it's generally the same thing.
Okay. I didn't know the difference there. Okay, so how does the dismissal of charges in exchange for rehabilitative completion impact the calculations for recidivism? So basically, what I'm getting at is that the way things are calculated, it looks one way, but it's not that way because the crimes are still committed. Do you understand where I'm going with that?
I understand that. I know where all this is coming from because he keeps saying this and it's not true. And I wish you would have shared all of this information with me before I think that would have been fair for you to do that, and you didn't do that. But I'll answer the question. Recidivism is calculated each time you get arrested. So it has whether you were released on pretrial diversion or not does not impact the recidivism rate.
So the dismissal of the charges doesn't change that number?
No.
Oh, well, okay. Well, that doesn't make sense then. All right. Let's see what else we got here. There's a mess of that stuff. To be upfront with you, I've interviewed both of the other gentlemen running for your position, and they both said different stuff. And I want to figure out what's what and what's bullshit, like I mentioned to you at the beginning of this. That's where my questions are coming from.
I know that
as
now.
well as my own. Yeah, you can see that. So what is salary savings?
It's just money that when you had positions that weren't filled,
yeah,
and but they were budgeted, that money didn't get spent. It was saved. It was budgeted for salaries, and it was saved.
So does it stay in the savings account, or does it go somewhere else to be applied?
No, it gets swept up by the Board of Supervisors at the end of the year.
Okay. And then where does it go?
They bring it back in.
To be used the following
year.
Okay, so it goes into a savings account. Okay, got it. All right. The new jail. A lot of controversy about that. I can guess what you would say as to why the new jail was built. Why was this new Justice Center created?
Well, you will hear about it at the presentation of the board on the 20th, but basically began about 25 years ago. And we had you have a jail in Camp Verde 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, even longer than that. It was opened in 1989, the first phase, which was like 50 beds. And then in 1996, 120 beds were opened over in the Verde. You had 134 beds here in Prescott. The old Prescott jail, which is on the second floor, really, of an office building on Gurley Street, right? And so it got to where there was about 350, 400 inmates in that jail. And it was so incredibly overcrowded. The federal government came, the DOJ came, and they launched a CRIPA, what's called a CRIPA investigation, Civil Rights of Institutionalized Persons Act investigation on the county.
Okay.
And they came out with a list of things that were going to turn into a consent decree and that needed to be fixed. One of the problems with the old Prescott jail is not only was it overcrowded, but it was what they call linear design, which didn't allow for the staff to see into the facility.
Mm.
And they didn't allow the staff to see into the facility. So it really couldn't be expanded. You couldn't do anything with it to make it remodel it in a way that would make it efficient, because it would have reduced the bed space down to about 80 beds. So it was understood at that time that a new facility needed to be built. Well, they just couldn't get it done. They couldn't find a place. They couldn't find, whatever it was that they wanted to, they just couldn't find a place to do it. It was not in my backyard. There was always a problem. Right. But they needed more bed space. So the county decided to build 480 more beds in Camp Verde. And they did. And so now you have a 600-bed jail over there.
Okay.
And that created a lot of issues. Only about 35% of the bookings and the population base is over in Camp Verde, and 65% are over here, which means 65% of the judicial processes are over here and whatnot. So eventually, because of budget cuts during the Great Recession, the Prescott jail, which was badly inefficient, closed, because there was an understanding the county eventually was going to pick a site and build a new facility here.
So that left everything to the Verde.
That just left everything to the Verde. So law enforcement was driving all their bookings over there, or doing all these things over in the Verde, and for a long time. And we had to transport people back and forth to court and whatnot, which cost a lot of money. It's unsafe. In 2008, I believe that it was, the county, or right in there, the county settled on the current location of the Criminal Justice Center. And they purchased it from Old Man Bunker, and they wanted to build it there. They built a juvenile center there, and whatnot. So went to the Prescott City Council. They approved the location and whatnot. And so then the county Board of Supervisors and the sheriff at the time, Steve Waugh, started working on getting the new jail built. Now, Sheriff Masher became the sheriff in 2011. He continued that work to get that facility completed. Mm-hmm. There was a consultant study in 2015 that was done that sort of came up with the conceptual design and how big it would be. And we didn't want to build it too big, because we would have had so much bed space in the county that you didn't necessarily need. But you needed to be able to book. You needed to be able to hold people here. You needed to be able to have an adequate infirmary. And so it was built that way. It's kind of a transfer facility, 152-bed transfer facility. So now people who are arrested here and going to be booked here, they are going to be here for 2 weeks or less. If they're here longer than that, we'll take them over to Camp Verde to be housed. But the jail really, this was an understanding, a need for the community that predates I didn't work in the jail till 2013. And so it predates my time working in the jail. So you had 5 or 6 boards of supervisors, 3 sheriffs that worked to get to this point. So by the time I became sheriff, a site had been selected, the bond had been done. I worked a lot under the direction of Sheriff Masher on designing it and what it was going to look like and what it was going to be there. The board decided to build it. They are the ones that paid for it. It was under construction when I became sheriff. So my job has been to get it open, get it completed, and get it open.
Okay. And is it open?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
I learned that the building of that jail cost $70 million.
The bond was $70 million, but I don't believe that's what the facility cost.
Okay. So the increase in property taxes for people in Yavapai County was 18% because of that build or that bond, right?
Well, you're going to have there's more facts to that I don't think are correct.
Okay.
I think maybe the county's portion of property tax was 18%, but the overall property tax was like 2 or 3% increase
For the individual homeowner and all that. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure about that.
Okay. Right on.
Yeah.
And my understanding of that place, you mentioned it has 152 beds, but it has a kitchen for 600 people that can feed up to 600.
It has a large kitchen, yeah.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, at the time that they were designing it, they thought, well, we can add more beds here someday. So you're going to build a kitchen and you're going to build a laundry.
Yeah,
and if you ever want to add on to it, you don't have to build all that stuff again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Right on. What else we got about that? It's not fully staffed though, right? And that's because we're waiting on growth to happen.
No, it's going to be fully staffed this week.
This week?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So how many people does it take to run that place?
It's about 50 detention officers.
Okay.
60, yeah.
Wow. Okay. And do they do all the stuff like the kitchen and all the laundry and everything, those 50 people?
The inmates do all that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. What else we got here? I think that's it for the jail. That makes sense to me. Now I feel bad trying to figure out, all this stuff that other people have told me, having to have you slice and dice it to figure out what's true and what's not. And like you said earlier, everybody in politics is full of shit in some capacity.
They have to make a problem so that they have something to run on,
to stand on, yeah.
Because they've not provided anything to this community like I have for 30 years. So it's all that they want to do is make up things.
I see. I understand. Okay. Do you believe that Katie Hobbs was justly elected?
Do I believe she was justly elected? You're going to have to say more about that. What does that mean?
Do you believe that the way that the voting happened was on the up and up?
You need to say more. What does that mean? What specifically are you asking?
I'm asking if you think that the election was fraudulent.
Do I think it was fraudulent? I have seen no evidence that it was fraudulent, and I have asked and asked and asked. And every single person who stood before the media and said that there was, myself, Mark Lamb, the other sheriffs, have asked for them to bring us their evidence and that we would investigate, and they have not.
Okay. So as being the president of the Sheriff's Association, what is your relationship like with Katie Hobbs? How do you guys interact when it comes to the money, the things you need, the money that the state gives you, the task force money? How does all of that look and work?
Ask me specifically what you want, because these are bidding questions based on an opponent that you're not fully informing me of where you're going with these things or whatnot. Like, what specifically are you wanting to ask?
I want to know, does Katie Hobbs ask for or require some kind of support in return for money allocated to our county or to you as the sheriff?
No, and she's not the one that allocates it.
Who allocates it?
The Arizona legislature. They have to pass the budget, and she signs it.
Okay. Man, I feel I've been misinformed.
You have.
Okay. All right. Well, now we got to get through the rumors. This is a super fun part. So, what's up with Spectrum Health?
What are you talking about?
So,
my wife is the CEO of a nonprofit organization there.
Right, that's Spectrum Health, right?
Yes.
And they have contracts with the county?
No.
Does their sub company have contracts with the county for pretrial diversion?
They're part of a partnership with Polera Health. That company has a contract with the county attorney's office for pretrial diversion. It has nothing to do with me, the office of the sheriff, nothing.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind then. The other one that comes up is a thing about an OUI or a DUI that people talk about. Were you charged or convicted with that?
I said I was. It's in the news. I was, we were out on a boat, or several boats with a bunch of friends. I was not driving. Somebody who was driving their houseboat that they had just gotten, he couldn't park it at the dock. He tried several times. He hit the edge. We were in a drift. He got very out of sorts. I tried to park it, but by that time, the park police were there. We did get it parked, and I didn't tell him who I was. I cooperated fully, and I immediately reported myself, took full responsibility for it. It's an OUI on a boat. And I reported myself to the media. And that's been it. And there's lies and rumors about me having DUIs in all these places, and none of it's true. They're lies.
Why would people say that?
Because they're lying to try to win an election.
I understand that. Now, the sense that I get from the individuals that say this stuff is not that they're lying, because I do have discernment as well. And I just don't see that that's the case. That's why I'm asking.
Where's the evidence?
I don't have it, so...
They don't either, because
Right.
it didn't happen.
Okay. The other one that I have is something about you possibly pending an indictment right now for... Is that not true?
Andy, this is embarrassing that these things are being thrown my way. I came here in good faith, not knowing, totally cold, not knowing you're going to answer. No, it's not true. Another lie. Pending an indictment?
Yeah.
For what?
Something having to do with embezzling money.
No.
Okay.
Another lie.
Well, I got some people I got to talk to. That's unfortunate. Well, I apologize if that's not the case.
It's not the case. It's not the case.
All right, let's see what else I got here then. All right, what other rumors are there that people have said about you that are or are not true?
I don't know.
You don't know?
You're saying I'm all right now. Why would you ask this kind of question?
Well,
I don't
because-
know what they're saying. I heard about the DUIs.
Yeah.
That's not true. There's rumor. You say, what's up with Spectrum Healthcare?
Yeah.
My wife is the CEO of a nonprofit.
Yeah, well,
She doesn't make money off it. We don't have any contracts. I haven't given any contracts. I'm under indictment. These people are completely incredible.
Yeah, it's implied that that's the thing, is that you're making money off of your wife's involvement with Spectrum Health, and
She
their
gets paid a
subcompany.
salary approved by a volunteer board.
Right on. Okay, I don't know how it works.
That's it.
I heard
It's like
these-
any nonprofit.
And I'll tell you the reason I'm asking these questions, which is super important, because if any of this stuff is true and you're the leader of the highest law in our county, then people need to know about it.
Well, yeah, of course they do.
So I have to ask you.
And the one thing that was true, I told the media
Yeah.
years before we were sitting in here talking about this.
Well, I just want you to understand that that's why I have to ask you this stuff to your face.
Yeah, but this is the bidding of, you're not asking specific questions. What's up with Spectrum Healthcare?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Well, if there is anything up with it, I would assume that you know what it means. And if you've heard anything like this before, which I know you have, then I would expect you to respond and say, hey, these are the rumors that people are saying, and they're not true.
The rumors is that I directed contracts to her.
Right.
And I didn't.
Okay.
And that she makes money off of these contracts, and she doesn't.
So that's what's up with Spectrum Health.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. That's all I got for the uncomfortable stuff. So we'll finish up with what is a lesson that you learned in life after really screwing something up?
Just be honest about it.
How do you feel about an armed, prepared citizenry? I kind of get the gist of you talking about the Second Amendment and having these volunteers. So instead of that, let's go into deputizing citizens. What is your understanding of that? What's your stance on that? Something crazy happens. Would you do it?
Yes, I would do it.
So what does it involve?
It involves backgrounds. It involves using your constitutional authority under the state constitution to command as many inhabitants as needed for to keep the peace. One of the charges of the sheriff. And if that was ever needed, I would do that.
Are there requirements that exist for it, or is that something that you would establish at the time?
I would establish.
Okay.
It does require you to be an inhabitant of the county.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's like carrying a weapon, not carrying a weapon, things like that you would decide at the
Well,
time.
look, I mean, yes, I would decide because people have to go through a background. There's a lot of things that have to be done, to make sure that you're not putting somebody out there that's worse than the people that you're trying to fight against.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And giving them a badge and the color of authority to go out and violate people's constitutional rights. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Right on.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and groups like that? What's your opinion on those or your stance on those?
They have a right to free speech.
Cool. As far as, about the Yavapai preparedness group.
Yeah.
Is there anything that Yavapai County Sheriff's does to facilitate any kind of training for citizens?
Yeah, we have a Citizens Academy. Like I said, we have our own training, our own background process for people that want to come and volunteer. The preparedness group, we work through. There's kind of a loose affiliation. I've been out there to speak with them a lot, and I know that they're looking at being prepared in case that there is a very, you have any type of domestic disturbance within the county and whatnot. And so we maintain close contacts and ties with them to be prepared together for how that might work. One of the things that a lot of those people offer is ham radio contact.
Yeah, I'm a ham radio operator.
Yeah, because if communications go down, then that's the only way you're gonna be able to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Is there any thought of increasing the type of training offered to the citizens by the county or by the sheriff's department?
For what?
Like here's how you put on a tourniquet or something like that. Anything?
We spend a lot of effort training the deputies and volunteers that sign up to be trained by us.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any plans right now to go out and train more people. We're very focused on fire evacuation season, fire season right now, and whatnot. But we encourage people to come and volunteer. You get a tremendous amount of training once you become a volunteer.
Mm-hmm. Right on. And is there a limit to the amount of volunteers you guys take?
No.
And what are the criteria for becoming a volunteer?
Well, I would recommend go to the website because there's a lot of different There's search and rescue, there's
Oh,
administrative, there's auxiliary force, there's mounted posse, there's...
and each requires a different
Yes.
set of
Yes.
abilities or whatever.
Yes.
All right. What do you believe happens when you die?
Well, hopefully you've been saved.
So you're a believer in Christ?
Yes.
Okay. How do you feel about the January 6th situation and the people that were there that day?
What about it?
Just how do you feel about, what's your perspective and your opinion on the whole thing and how those people were treated?
I mean, it's another complicated issue, but in a nutshell, you had 100,000 people that were there voicing their constitutional rights, voicing their First Amendment rights. They had a grievance with the government, and they were taking it up with the government. And you had probably about 1,000 people or so that did break the law.
Yeah.
And those people needed to be held accountable. But I do know some of the strategies that the government uses, which is to hold you in jail until you take their plea agreement. And I don't...
What does that mean?
It's just, you're in jail long enough, and they're offering you a plea agreement, and you eventually want to get out, and you got to plead guilty. And so, I don't know if I necessarily agree with those strategies and tactics. But it was a really, really unfortunate situation. The people that broke the law needed to be held to account.
I agree. Yeah. It sucks that a lot of them that, didn't do anything also got incarcerated and
and
like
I haven't kept up with the facts of the cases as they've come out, but I have heard that, which is terrible. I mean, each individual, that's the thing about criminal prosecutions. You have to prove a particular person committed a particular crime. Merely being present somewhere doesn't constitute a crime.
Yeah. And it sets a scary precedent for people that do want to express any opposition to the government.
Yeah.
What do you think about all this stuff going on where, like, we met initially at the Save Our Kids presentation where they're talking about the curriculum being put in they're trying to put it in the libraries and stuff like that. So where do you stand on the...
Can I ask you how many more questions you have? Because I had this down for an hour.
Oh.
That's what it's on my calendar for.
Oh, okay. That's not what I talked to your scheduler about. I said 2 to 3.
Oh.
But I don't have that many more. I've got maybe 3 or 4 more.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it.
Okay.
So.
Well, I took a position on that, and I was at the Save Our Kids event. And that was, they've got to, that no kid should ever be provided anything. Nobody under 18 should be provided anything sexually explicit without the parents' knowledge or approval.
Yeah.
And, they were, even if they are educational books, and that the libraries must and should keep those out of reach of kids. And the parents must be notified. Period, end of story. The government should not be providing things to kids without parents' knowledge.
Yeah. Do you know about the House of Hughes?
No.
Organization? These, like, pride parades and supposedly family-friendly events that are really cross-dressers dancing and stuff like that.
I don't know about it.
Okay. Well, they got stuff like that they're trying to do in Prescott. They've had some events already. I guess my question would be to you, if there's an event like that that's taking place and tickets are being sold as if it's family-friendly and they allow kids into this event that's really an adult event, where does that stand with law? How is there a law that can be enforced to?
Well, you have to. There's so much to that, Yes, you can restrict children from going into something that's a deemed adult entertainment. And adult entertainment is, like pornography, the period interest of the viewer, and you should restrict kids from that. But there are. We haven't, there are, drag shows in which are not sexual in nature. It's difficult to make an argument that there's a period interest of the viewer to that. And so it really gets down to what's being shown and what is the behavior of the show.
Okay. That's all I got. Is there anything that you want to share with people?
No, I mean, I think that, it's unfortunate politics is the way that it is,
Yeah.
and things will be said without any basis of fact about people.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have a reputation and history of being transparent and honest. That's why I've survived this business for 30 years. And that's why I was able to, be elected sheriff. And the things that we've done here to protect this community, me and the people that work for me, have been done under my watch and under my direction.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I'm seeking re-election.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I'm the best choice for Yavapai County. And the results are out there. We live in one of the safest places in the entire country.
Yeah.
One of the best places to live in the entire country. A place where law enforcement is universally supported and where we are moving forward. We have a plan to deal with all of the things that are coming our way, and we react well when things are coming our way that we don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm running for re-election, is to finish the job that I started. And I, of course, we're going to obviously see more of this. This campaign is going to be about trying to tear me down and not lift law enforcement up. And I think that that's sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it feels pretty shitty to be in between opposing forces. I'll tell you that much. So my apologies, and I appreciate your time. And I hope you get elected if that's what you truly want. And do you have any idea of how long you want to be sheriff for?
Well, I tell you, you take it a term at a time.
Okay.
And I don't think that, you start planning for... I don't believe that the founders of this country ever intended for any elected official. Permanent incumbency was never their intent.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you come... public service is, when they created it especially, was somewhat of a burden. To leave your family, to take on all of these things, to leave your... leave your farm, leave your business, leave your way of making money behind,
Mm-hmm.
and go and serve your communities and whatnot. And then you come in, you do what you can do, and then you set the pathway for other people to come in behind you. I've always believed that. Whenever that is, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right on. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.